So I'm here in the hood of my car and I'm getting ready to install this fuse block, which I need as part of the new amp that I'm installing for my car. And I wanted to talk about a few things. First of all, as you can see, I've got the wire running. I have this kind of the wire loom here, peeled back a little bit so you can see. Went ahead and attached this ferrule here on the end and then heat shrinked it onto my power wire. This is the Colossus power wire. It's great wire. It's oxygen-free copper. I definitely recommend using it. I like to use these wire ferrules because they provide a nice tight connection into the inputs here, so you don't just try and shove a bunch of wires in there on the end. Keeps it really tight. As you can see, I've got the loom running back here. It makes it look nice and like it's factory, and the wire eventually runs down through the firewall down there. Now, something I don't really understand is that a lot of people, when I see the systems that they've installed, they don't actually attach the fuse anywhere. You see them just kind of hanging off, and I don't know if that's because people don't know how to attach them or why that is. So I'd like to show you what I like to do with these and what I'm going to do in this particular case. So these, of course, you can't have it sticking up too high or it's going to hit the hood. One option is to try and mount it under here. You know, there's a lot of different places you can try and put it if there's room over here maybe. In this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect or just take this nut off, and I'm going to use this sheet of plastic, this ABS that I bought. It's 1/4 inch, very sturdy. I'm going to cut just a little piece off that will fit right up in this area, and I'm just going to use this nut to secure this down on here. Of course, I'll use a washer. I'll have it extend back here, and then I'll just secure this to the ABS. And what that'll do is give a nice tight connection, and it'll keep the fuse secure. Of course, it's very important to have that fuse up there. You want to have it as close to the positive terminal as you can. You don't want that to be a long distance, because essentially any of the wire between the terminal and that first fuse is unprotected and could potentially melt if it arcs somehow. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll show you what it looks like. So there's the plastic installed there, right here. Like I said, it looks really good, really clean. It'll provide a nice, safe, strong surface there, and it is 1/4 inch, so it's not gonna break. I'm gonna take it actually back off now and install my fuse holder, and then I'll put it back on with the fuse. So there it is installed. As you can see, I just ran some screws or some little tiny bolts down there through it. There's the washer on the top and the bottom side of each end, and of course the washer on the plastic there to hold that in place. So good tight connection. That's not going to go anywhere. So now I'll hook up my power wire from the battery to this side, the fuse holder, of course the fuse, and then continue the power wire on that side. So like I said, as I'm putting this wire together, I just want to show you that wire, the ferrule, just slipped right over there. It makes a real nice, good connection. You can see the wire comes right up to the end of this, which is what you want. And all I need to do now is put my heat shrink over that. I'm going to put it over the end just a little bit, so it goes on top of the ferrule. If I can get it there with one hand. There, just like that. Get it over there at the end just a little bit. Just heat shrink that on with my heat gun, and it'll be ready to install. So like you can see, there it is installed. Doing it this way makes it look very professional. It looks like that's something that would have come from the factory. Pretty close. I mean, other than this big plastic cap here. I haven't connected it obviously to the battery yet because I'm not ready to hook everything up on the back end for the amp. But really all that's left is for me to put the fuse in there, and that'll be ready to go once I'm ready to hook up the amp in the back. So as I'm getting ready to install this fuse here, I wanted to talk a little bit about the fuses and how you know what kind of fuse you need and what kind of wire you need. There's lots of charts out there that you can go and look. One that I like is from New Concepts. It's spelled KNU Concepts, and then the last letter is a Z. If you look at that and look at the requirements for each of your amps, it should tell you how many amps that's going to draw. Now there are some calculations you can do to verify that those amp ratings are correct. If you're buying a cheap, no-name amp, you may want to do that. With most of the bigger amp companies, you're going to know you're getting what they say you got. So in this case, I have two amps in the back of the car. One's a 50 amp, and the other is 40 amps. Are the requirements for the fuses. Since they don't make a 90 amp fuse that I could find, went a little bit higher and just got a 100 amp fuse, which is probably fine. As far as the wiring, again, go on and look online. It'll tell you based on the fuse ratings of your amps, of how much amperage they're pulling, what size of wire you need, what gauge of wire. In this case, I went with 1/0 gauge wire, based on what the chart said. That may be a little bit of overkill in this case, but I decided to go ahead and do that. I'd rather be safe than sorry. So it is very important to have the amp up, to have this fuse up here. A lot of people kind of think like, hey, you don't need these, or I've heard that, you know, people think putting a fuse up here somehow reduces the amount of power to the amp itself in the back. That's just not true. The whole purpose of these fuses is to burn out in the case of a short. They have a tiny little piece of metal right in the middle of them, if you can see that. This right here, and that's exactly what that's supposed to do. It's supposed to melt if you draw too much amperage. So having a fuse up here is absolutely critical. You don't want to melt your wires and start your car on fire. You do need fuses back on the back end as well, but having this fuse up here is critical. So go online, take a look at those charts to figure out the gauge of wiring and the size of amp or fuse that you need. So there it is, all installed. Like I said, it looks really good. Very nice and sturdy. Got good connections here. Got the fuse installed, and that'll make a great connection, and really doesn't detract from much looking like it was part of the factory system. So I wanted to show you how this finally ended up. After I went ahead and did what they call the Big 3 wiring, and I'll do another video on that to show you how that looks. But essentially, it's the addition of an additional ground there, which you can see that coming over, and then the addition of a larger power wire from the battery to the alternator, which is this wire right here. And the nice thing about this New Concepts terminal is that it has actually three places where you can connect wires there. So it gave me more options for connecting wires. This bronze piece on the end actually unscrews, and so I was able to connect the, right here, I was able to connect the power wire that runs over to the fuse. And on the end of that is the factory connector. And so by being able to put that on the end of the brass there, it meant I didn't have to cut that off, and so the factory wire remains intact. So I would definitely recommend getting this battery terminal adapter. It was a great addition. So anyway, that's the fuse installation. So good luck with doing this yourself. Certainly worked out, and like I said, I think it ended up looking really good.